Good morning. It is exactly 365 days to the date to the next general election. August 10th it is 2026. Na hiyo ingine ikifika August 10th tunaenda kwa debe. Although some people feel it shouldn't be. According to at least one court, the election date should be tomorrow. Tomorrow,
the
Tuesday.
11th.
The 11th of Tuesday.
11th of August.
11th of August,
Yeah.
2026.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's practical, well, we'll leave it up there. A lot of discussions. Alternative government unity, whether or not they are ready. President William Ruto, is he ready? Who's going to be his running mate? These are just some of the discussions we'll be looking at, including the pieces of legislation already before the Houses of Parliament, which are supposed to govern the next general election. My name is Freddy Ndimuli, and this is our kickoff TV47 breakfast. How hot is your coffee?
All right, my name is Annie Odid, and of course a lot is happening in the country, being the 222nd day of the year. So exactly 365 days to the next general election, right? A lot has been happening. It has been a very beautiful and long weekend. Very lovely photos that we saw. The first daughter has been taken, you know, kwa jirani sasa tumekuwa in-laws wa ukweli.
Na jirani wanaturingia sana sasa ati tumepita na msichana wenu. Ni sawa tu.
At least the highest bidder, when come out your highest bidder, then congratulations.
Was it really, did it go really to the highest bidder?
Well, you never know really. Kama tunaangalia girl math, then if it's girl math, then that's how we can put it.
Okay.
Also, the broad-based government is in Naivasha, just to consolidate what, or talk about how they can come together and support President William Ruto's bid of come 2027. So yes, indeed, a lot is happening. It's also World Lions Day today, so protect the lions. Yeah.
Do they need protection?
They do. They do. Najua wengine anasema lions wanakufa huko kwa
even
kwa
elephants.
park.
Even elephants are dying. Yes. Right. So
use the hashtag TV47 breakfast. Hashtag story ni yetu. Ati producer amesema lions walisema ni.
Kuna lions that was in a swim.
At our lions swim. That one caught me off guard. As I was saying, interact with us on our socials. It's TV47 Kenya on Facebook and on YouTube. On X is TV47 Digital. You can tag us on our personal handles. Mine is at Annie_Dida.
Mine is at Freddy Ndimuli.
Right. Another thing that I wanted to mention before I forgot. Yesterday I saw former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua change tune on Kithure Kindiki, Professor. Wewe si ndugu yako wewe.
Usiniite ndugu yako. Ulichukua kiti yangu wewe.
Very interesting.
But it's interesting. Why is he changing? It's only 2 weeks ago akasema yeye hatutasumbuana na Kindiki.
Yeah.
Sasa tena anambia wewe si ndugu yangu.
Labda cousins would do.
Okay, fine. Call him your cousin then. It's okay.
Let's take a look at how the weather's looking like this morning. It's a partly sunny day today in Karatina. 12 degrees this morning, highs of 23 degrees. Light rains expected in Kisumu, but it's a hot day today. Highs of 30 degrees in Kisumu. This morning it's 18 degrees. Kitui, it's a sunny day. Highs of 27 degrees. 14 degrees this morning. That's as far as Karatina. Double K. Karatina, Kisumu, and Kitui. Kakamega, light rains expected today. 18 degrees this morning. Kisii, partly sunny day, 16 degrees this morning, highs of 27 degrees. It's a mostly cloudy day in Nairobi, 13 degrees this morning, highs of 24 degrees. That's the state of the weather. Yes, 13 degrees in Nairobi this morning.
Feels like 9. Actually, it's way colder. Yeah, I mean, I'm freezing.
No.
I know I'm a hot guy, but today I'm feeling cold.
Today is not that cold. Now today
baridi.
Let's see or get some inspiration this morning. Quote of the day.
Nature has given us all the pieces required to achieve exceptional wellness and health, but has left it to us to put these pieces together.
So you still have to do some work on behalf of nature. You have to piece it together.
Yeah.
Yes.
Protect nature and nature will protect you.
All right. Let's come back and take a look at the papers today. Exactly 1 year to go. All right, and even as we anticipate the countdown to the next elections, TV47 will be ready this evening. We'll be having the inaugural Kenya Decides edition of our special coverage of the elections 2027, because we're still going with 2027 as a date. Yeah. Yes, so tune in at around 6 p.m. all the way to 10 p.m. for that edition of Kenya Decides 2027.
All right.
Right, and we are not the only ones. I can see the Daily Nation on Washaamua. 1 year to go. That's the front page of the Daily Nation. And it has there on the front page, they're calling theirs Decision 2027. With some of the candidates who've already declared their intentions to run for president. Kalonzo Musyoka, David Maraga, Martha Karua, President William Ruto there. Edwin Sifuna, Fred Matiang'i, and Rigathi Gachagua. Who will it be? Also, this paper has done us justice, giving us some of the breakdown of timelines to expect between today's date and the next general election. So key electoral timelines. August 10th will be publication of limits for expenditure, contributions and donations. The IEBC inside pages have already set the limit for the presidential amount. It's about 6.1 billion shillings. That is how much, that's the ceiling of how much you should spend. Minasikia kuna watu wako na kitita watches running into the billions. You're all supposed to spend 6.1.
As a presidential candidate.
As a presidential candidate. Na wengine wako na over 100 billion. December 10th this year, you'll have the issuance of compliance certificate to compliant political parties. Remember, we have over 90 political parties currently registered. But for them to take part in an election, there are some things they have to comply with, including having offices in a number of counties, representation in at least, I think, 24 counties across the country. So kama hawaja comply hiyo, we're not doing with briefcase parties. February 9th, deadline for public officers intending to vie to resign from office. And you will see a lot of resignation. A lot of PSs, a lot of CSs would like to vie for office. So by February 9th, a few days before Valentine's next year, wote wanatoka kazi. Then political parties submit membership list to IEBC on March 16th. May 9th, independent candidates to submit their names and symbols. August 7th, end of campaign period being 48 hours to general election day. May 29th to June 11th, a nomination of political party and independent candidates. Remember, the official campaigns will kick off on May 29th next year. Hii ingine yote ni kelele. Yeah, campaign haijaanza, official campaigns May 29th. So it's exactly 1 year to the August 10th, 2027 general election, when voters will decide whether to give President William Ruto another 5-year term or replace him with one of his opponents. Today, this paper will be launching extensive election coverage, highlighting poll preparations, key campaign issues, and the growing influence of young voters as they scrutinize those seeking various political seats. So this is a main story on the front page and the inside pages of this paper.
Given prominence in 10 pages.
10 pages. Hey, and by the way, I love what they've done. They've broken everything, including the numbers. Least expensive counties, most expensive counties. 2027, no, this ceiling has changed, I think. So America 6.1 billion. Mbona pa nasema 4.4 billion. Yeah.
That is overall spending ceilings, yeah. President,
Yeah.
Okay.
Gen Z seek to turn street protests into political power. Will they? That's a story on pages 4 and 5. They look at IEBC and what exactly they'll be doing with all these timelines. Big crisis as IEBC faces 33.5 billion shilling funding gap. All those things. So more and more about elections and nothing else but elections. Yes. After that, in fact, there's nothing else they're covering today. It's just exactly a year to the next election. On the back page, we said now we are focusing on the 2026 World Athletics Under-20 Championships. Global age group competition ends. Kenya endures long wait for glory in men's 800 meters. So Kenyan athletes finished 5th and 6th in the final race, won by Morocco's Buchaja in Oregon. So Kenyans did not do very well. Okay. So yes, And that is the Nation.
All right.
Daily Nation.
Tuangalie gazeti la Taifa Leo, manake it's just the same headline. Kivumbi chaanza, mwaka mmoja kuanzia leo Wakenya watamiminika vituo vya kupigia kura kufanya uamuzi kuhusu watakaye watawala hadi mwaka 2032. Watachagua ama kumkabidhi Rais William Ruto muda mwingine wa miaka 5 au kumpa nafasi kiongozi mpya kuchukua usukani. Katika uchaguzi huo ambayo tayari umepachikwa lakabu ya 2 term dhidi ya 1 term, wapiga kura watachagua wabunge 290 na bunge la kitaifa ama wabunge wa kitaifa, magavana 47 na manaibu wao 47, wabunge wawakilishi wanawake 47, maseneta na madiwani kutoka wadi. Ni mwaka mmoja tu uliosalia kabla ya Wakenya kuchagua kiongozi wao atakayewatawala hadi mwaka 2032. As it stands, according to the latest TV report, President William Ruto is leading by 24%, which is very, very small, followed by, of course, Edwin Sifuna at 15%. And then, hivyo tu venye wamefuatana mbele ya hiyo gazeti, Kalonzo Musyoka at 13%, according to the latest TV report. So, actually, President William Ruto haja improve.
He's a front runner. You know,
yeah,
he may lead now, but given the fact that he won in 2022
yeah,
with 50% plus, means he's really dropped by almost half the kind of support he got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, that is the main story on the front page of gazeti la Taifa Leo. Kivumbi chaanza, vidokezo zaidi huenda mamilioni ya kamera zitumike uchaguzi ujao. Ripoti zaonyesha karibu kila mpiga kura nchini aweza kutumia simu yake ya kisasa kurekodi matukio katika kituo chake. So alikuwa amekataa hii mambo ya kwenda
unaambia
na simu polling station.
Kamera itabidi zitumike.
Sasa ripoti imesema huenda mamilioni ya kamera zitumike next year's election. Koti yapiga breki ujenzi wa msikiti, yadaiwa msikiti huo unajengwa katika ardhi ya bustani ya umma Mombasa. Nitazidi kuvumisha ODM, Mbadi asema licha ya kuwa afisa wa serikali, asema hata acha siasa za ODM. Kule juu zaidi, IEBC yatoa ratiba ya uchaguzi. Tume iliweka wazi tarehe muhimu za maandalizi ya kura hadi Agosti 10 mwaka ujao. Taifa Leo.
Habari ya Arsenal hutaki kuisoma. Arsenal wapokonywa Emirates Cup nyumbani, walilimwa na Dortmund mabao 3-2.
Wacha wewe.
Sawa tu. Let's continue with another paper that at least covers politics, and this is a People Daily, and it has a very interesting, or rather very peculiar discussion there. Is Ruto a temporary incumbent? And this has to do with matters law. Many people may not understand, but the provisions of our law, if you read article, I think 139 on electoral timelines, they've created a crisis also, because a judge in Malindi has actually said, yes, according to that arithmetic, according to the description of when the date of the election should be, then, because they say it is the second Tuesday of August in the 5th year.
Yeah.
So akihesabu kutoka 2022, which was the first year, 23, 24, 25, 26, meaning we're already in the 5th year. And the second Tuesday of August is when? Tomorrow, 11th. So we are supposed to be going to elections tomorrow, according to the pronouncements of the courts. Yeah? Fine. Even if we don't, it means that President Ruto, according to some people, could be president, yes, but a temporary incumbent, meaning that for the period remaining up until someone else or even himself is sworn in afresh, there are things he cannot do as president, including firing his own cabinet. Yeah? If at all we don't challenge this thing in court.
Yeah.
Yeah. So temporary incumbency has its own implications. Yeah. And so that's the main story on this paper. It's been given quite some prominence. It's there on page 3, 4, and 5 of exactly what it means. And different lawyers have different opinions about this. Today, on State of the Nation, we'll be having 2 lawyers, Kibe Mungai and Ishmael Nyaribo, to tell us their own perception and their opinion about this court judgment and what it means going forward. Will it be challenged at the Court of Appeal? And what other court pronouncements that would be made and what they would mean for this election next year. So I think that's the most interesting one. Yes, 1 year to elections, but hey, Probably tunaenda election kesho. IBC taweza.
Kama hata wanalia funding,
Hata pesa hawana
pesa bwana. 41.3 billion Kenyan shillings itawatosha kweli? Haiwezi. Hiyo yenye walipewa.
Yeah.
They want 74.8 billion shillings.
Right. So other highlights away from matters election date, why Kenya has no fuel emergency reserves to survive a global crisis. Mutakipata. Pale juu, JSS teachers a digital glitch that cost them promotions. And what would the opposition do if it actually took power? So still a lot of focus on politics. People Daily, people and politics.
All right, let's take a look at the Standard now. It has steered clear of the election news on the front page. But they say, where are they? Police officers on the run. Rogue cops implicated by the DCI, one of the most chilling murders in recent memory. Inspector Kenneth Kipkemboi and Constables Elijah Kibelion and Collins Kiplangat are linked to the daylight killing of Dr. Victoria Mutiso. Now, detectives have placed the three officers at different stages of the plot, with Kipkemboi and Kiplangat now on the run. Former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua yesterday claimed the officers were paid 1.5 million shillings for the hit and that two of them were arrested but released after a phone call from Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen. The chilling question now is how officers entrusted with protecting lives became part of an execution squad and why two of them remain free. Right, so where are they? The story is on page 2. The former Deputy President is quoted here, and he said, "We are asking Mr. Amin, these officers are in Kenya. They are killers. They have killed Dr. Mutiso, and you have confirmed they participated in the murder. Why then are you releasing them after Murkomen called you?" All right, Tangalia inside pages. Joe Biden's prostate cancer battle highlights need for early diagnosis. That is another story on page 3, that former US President's prostate cancer has spread to his bones. Bone being the most common site of spread in advanced prostate cancer, affecting up to 9 in 10 men. Did you know that? Did you know that bone is the most common site of spread in advanced prostate cancer, affecting up to 9 in 10 men? So if you're in studio, you're 10 men. 9 of you.
Right now, we can't even count 10. So
I'm saying if, because at some point you'll be 10. MP's back proposal for an independent body to probe accidents is also on page 3. Inside Ruto's 4 years of delayed and unfulfilled grand promises. They capture this story on page 4. That Ruto campaigned as a champion of hustlers, promising lower prices and better livelihoods. And nearly 4 years later, rising costs and new levies tell a different story. Hizi ni zile gases za Olkalau are also here on the front, ndani ya page 4. That President William Ruto promised to reduce the price of a 6 kg cooking gas cylinder to 500 Kenya shillings. A promise yet to be fulfilled. Ruto's education gamble faces tough tests. Many reforms remain unsettled, leaving the president with little time to deliver before elections. And universities are in debt, while high schools grapple with the inadequate capitation and teacher. That is also on page 5. They've called it Ruto's scorecard. And on page 6, very interesting stories, by the way, on the inside pages of the Standard. The race to stop Ruto, ambitions meet hard maths of numbers game. All right, and Edwin Sifuna is at the center of this. They'll be in Homa Bay. 16th is this week. 16th, yes, this week, this Saturday. On the back page, Kenyan stars face harsh reality in day 4 of Under 20 show. That's the Standard. Right.
From the Standard, we take a look at the Star. Very little focus on anything political today on the front page. They focus on matters to do with food production. Poor rainfall leaves Kitale, Eldoret, a maize crop withered. Now, this is big news because Kitale and Eldoret, this is the main food basket for this country. This is where all the maize is grown. Yeah? Wacha ile ya kugalana kulalu. Kitale na Eldoret wakikataa kupanda mahindi mutalala njaa. Yeah? What started as a bad season, now food security concern. That story is a main one on pages 4 and 5, and it should concern many people because we're still talking about El Nino coming. Now imagine that already poor rainfall, Kitale and Eldoret have not produced as they should have. So the situation is particularly painful for commercial farmers because maize production requires significant upfront expenditure on land preparation, seed, fertilizer, chemicals, labor, and machinery. Yes, Kenya's maize basket turns brown as drought threatens food security. Yeah. So the affected counties are Trans Nzoia, Uasin Gishu, Nandi, Elgeyo Marakwet, Bungoma, Kakamega, Baringo, and Narok. Over 50,000 acres in Trans Nzoia have been affected. Big story there. And they have this beautiful photo of the first family. President William Ruto, the First Lady Rachel Ruto with their daughter Charlene, and her fiancé, this Tanzanian businessman, Isaiah Yunge. You must agree, it is a beautiful photo.
It is.
Yeah, it is a very beautiful photo there on the front page. And I think social media has been full of all these photos. They really allowed, and for the first time I think we got to see the president's residence. So many angles of it in Kilgoris because all cameras were there, mobile phones, everyone was just taking photos. And this is the first time we've seen that. You know, we rarely get to see even State House that open or any other president's home. But ile Kilgoris sasa tunajua vile inakaa.
Courtesy of Charlene Ruto. Congratulations.
Congratulations to Charlene. I remember when Benny Hinn came, akasema prayer request.
Maybe that one is inconsequential, bwana.
No, alipeana prayer request na majibu imefika.
Sasa 2 years on. Labda ilikuwa tu mpango iko hivyo.
Majibu ilifika, that's the point. Engaged Charlene radiant on her big day. A very interesting story here that's featured on page 22. A woman survives vicious leopard attack trying to save her dad in Lamu. So they say this is a 26-year-old woman in Mangal village within the Boni forest in Basuba ward, Lamu, survived a leopard attack on Friday morning. She was attacked as she tried to save her elderly father from the leopard, which had been resting behind their homestead. Startled by movement as the father opened the chicken coop's door to release the chicken for the day, the leopard first attacked the elderly man, who raised alarm. Alerted by her father's scream, Yusuf darted out of the house to see what was happening before the wild animal turned its attention to her. She survived. They have more photos on page 22 of what happened. Even the father was only slightly injured. Hey, oh, neza.
Mama.
Yeah? Leopard.
No, my son.
Hey, it's a good one. So we wish a quick recovery. Ex-DP Rigathi targets 100 MPs clean sweep in Mount Kenya region is the only political story featured pale juu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti la The Star. That's the only political story there today. Hakuna siasa mingi kwa The Star leo. Hata kama ni 1 year to elections. In fact, kule ndani, if you want to see more pictures of Charlene's day, wanasema when love meets power, page 8. Hata hizi picha sijaziona huko. Ziko hata ule jamaa wa power, Aida Odinga was there. Winnie Odinga too was there. Very interesting photos there from that wedding. All right. Back page, Gore stay focused. Akonor draws positives from Kogalo's Kagame Cup campaign despite heartbreak. Walipigwa mabao moja, 2-1. They lost to Ryan Sports in extra time at their Mahoro Stadium. That's the Star. Fresh, independent, different. Grab yourself a copy of this paper for only 60 bob.
Business Daily makes mention of the decision 2027. Of course, ni pamoja na Daily Nation na Taifa Leo. Former PS takes top stake in Middle East Bank Kenya. That's the main story. That is former Principal Secretary Esther Koimet. She has emerged as the largest shareholder in Middle East Bank Kenya following a multi-billion shilling wealth transfer from her late father, Nicholas Biwott. That is a story on page 2. The regulator discloses from the bank shows that Ms. Koimet holds a 17.4% stake, making her the single largest investor in that institution. On the ticker, KRA releases fight for tax deduction, bad loans with banks, NSSF savings lift life insurance premiums, and Kenyans rate China's influence above US. That's the Business Daily.
All right. From the Business Daily, let's take a look at some of the regional papers. And today we have the East African. The East African talks about Museveni's path to confederation. After trying and failing to make the East African community a unified policy for the past 2 decades, President Museveni is proposing a shared military and space program among regional states while keeping their sovereignty. So he's pictured here during his latest visit to Tanzania with his host, President Samia Suluhu Hassan. Museveni, just like the former Libyan leader, Muammar Gaddafi, have always been pushing for one united continent. Sema kama hata tulishindwa ile ya United Africa, tujaribu United East Africa. Hii imekuwa ngumu. Sana sema si we just have one military.
As East Africa.
Alafu Kaireru Gaba kwa hapo kama mdosi.
Haiwezi. Kila mtu ajitegemee.
Why? Because of Kaireru Gaba.
You know how Kaireru Gaba can be ungovernable sometimes.
That's the East African. Let's go to the Daily Monitor. Daily Monitor talks about NRM and the opposition list priorities. This is the Daily Monitor in Uganda now. The NRM party parliamentary caucus has come up with 11 resolutions that they believe would propel the country forward. The opposition, on the other hand, have unveiled 5 legislative priorities aiming to shift their role from merely criticizing government policies to presenting alternative solutions. And Uganda is moving to contain El Nino risks. They're using there a photo of someone trying to kupita kwa maji ya flood. Just remember, El Nino is coming to Kenya as well. Still in Uganda, we take a look at the new vision. IMF hails Uganda economic growth. That's the main story. But General Muhoozi Kairenugaba's son has now graduated from the military military university, Sandhurst, in Britain. That's the place where Kairenugaba went to school. Now that the father is talking about a united East African army, just know Kairenugaba and his son are trained military officials. Yeah, so that's the father with the son at Sandhurst in Britain. Right, so that is as far as Uganda is concerned. Tukiingia Tanzania, the Citizen geopolitics fuels Tanzania race for edible oil security is a big story there. And then gazeti la Mwananchi, makali bei vifaa vya ujenzi kupaisha kodi za nyumba. Wamekuwa wakizungumzia sana masuala ya ujenzi wa nyumba kule Tanzania, especially Dar. Wanasema bei za kodi ya nyumba imepanda. Sasa pia makali bei ya vifaa vya ujenzi kupaisha kodi za nyumba zaidi. Ofisa wa polisi amburuza IGP AG kotini. Amburuza. Every day you learn.
What's that?
Amburuza, nafikiri alimpeleka kotini. Yeah. So those are the local and regional dailies. Let's take a look at the cartoons just to gauge what the big discussion is today. The cartoon on the Daily Nation has this caricature of police officer looking at himself in the mirror, and the other person, the image is a bloodied officer. Kuna damu kila mahali. Mystery killings investigations. A lot of accusations against cops being used as hitmen, killing people while in police custody. It's just a bloodied police service. Very unfortunate. That's the Daily Nation.
The one on the Star, there's a caricature here, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. There's another caricature of DCI boss Amin Mohamed, and a caricature of President William Ruto. We've been talking about this the whole of last week, how Rigathi Gachagua is breaking news. Mkingoja kubreak news is the one breaking that news.
Anakuja anapita katikati yao. Anaenda na break.
Anatoka kwa screens, anakuja anaambia wa Kenya kabla mwambie wa Kenya.
Ninajua Kenya anaenda kusema. Acha niwaambie.
Let me break that news for you. That is what Rigathi Gachagua is doing. That is his own stake.
Yeah. Rigathi Gachagua, or at least a caricature of him, is also on the cartoon of the People Daily. Amebeba hapo makaratasi mingi zinaitwa defection requests. Alisema watu wote wanataka kuingia DCP. Anasema the mountain is harvesting big. Everyone now wants to join DCP according to him. Anasema all these are requests. Zingine tunakataa mpaka tuna vet. Ukitaka kuingia DCP, we vet you now.
Nasikia wanatuma wengine kwa chama zingine.
Waende waka spy.
Waende wasaidiane.
Wewe usikuje hapa, wewe enda hiyo chama nyingine.
So you know that they're in the United Alternative Government. So ni kama wanasaidiana, wanapea huyu mmoja, enda saidia hii, enda saidia hapa, enda saidia hapa, so that we can work
tuharakishe zaidi. Alright.
Something like that. The one on the Standard, now there's 2 slides here. Human rights, activists are championing for human rights and right to life at the same time. We are denied right to life according to that caricature.
If you may look at your story tumeongea askari polisi. We may be fighting for human rights. It's supposed to be a police service, but they are among those leading in taking or failing to protect this right to life. Police are killing Kenyans, which is very sad, if you imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are the caricatures this morning, and that's the Standard.
Yes. So these are just some of the biggest talking points in and around Kenya and the region. We'll be looking at some of those with my panelists after the break. A reminder, we'll be having Wakili Kibe Mongai, Wakili Ishmael Nyaribo, and political risk analyst Dismas Mukua. Do stand by for that. Just before we take a break, let's take a quick look at the traffic situation in and around major roads in Nairobi. And I start off with Thika Road because I could already identify a problem somewhere. A long stretch of red all the way from Garden City Mall to that area which used to be called Drive-In. This is way past the Allsops interchange. Yeah, it looks like there must be an incident there because traffic is not moving, is at a standstill on that stretch of Thika Road. Hapo kuna shida. This has affected areas like Outer Ring Road as well. Those using Outer Ring Road may experience delays because of that. But those who are already past KCA University and Utalii are getting it a bit easier at the Pangani interchange because most of the traffic is held back at Garden City Mall and Allsops. Kiambu Road is good today. Eastern Bypass, building up slowly areas around Utawala and that stretch at AP Training School, na GSU Training School, Kote. A bit of traffic there. It's flowing all the way to the KQ headquarters. Bit more traffic on Outer Ring Road, this time round heading towards the direction of the airport. A lot of traffic there around Feather Estate. I don't know what's happening. Hiyo inaweza leta shida sana. Jogoo Road this morning is not looking bad. The usual trouble spots at Makadara. And after that, it's smooth all the way. You get into town, then you experience traffic on Haile Selassie Avenue, both sides of the road, Railways roundabout, Landis Road roundabout, extending into parts of Muthurwa and Marikiti as well. Twende Mombasa Road sasa, and Mombasa Road, nothing to report. So I'm going as far back as Mlolongo. It is green all the way into town, even on the expressway. It is good. On the opposite side of town, that's Wayaki Way. It's green all the way past ABC Place and into the city. Yeah, hizo zingine naja kuongelelea. Ngong Road ni ile tu, no traffic. That's the traffic situation this Monday morning. Thika Road ndio iko shida.
All right, remind them of tonight.
Yes, once again, tonight you have the inaugural edition of Kenya Decides. TV47 will be kicking off our one-year countdown to the next general election tonight, starting at 6 p.m. Do stand by for that. It'll be going all the way to 10 p.m. We'll be having all the stakeholders to discuss the plans, the anticipated issues, and every other discussion in and around preparations for the next general election. Whether or not there's controversy around the date, we'll discuss that as well. So do stand by, make a date with TV47 this evening.
Meanwhile, interact with us on our socials, TV47 Kenya on Facebook and on YouTube. Our next is TV47 Digital. Monday Blitz will be coming up next after State of the Nation. You can tag us. My handle is at Annie_Dida.
Mine is at Fred Indemole.
Use the hashtag TV47 Breakfast, hashtag StoryNet. See you after the break.
at 8:30 p.m.
Good morning.
You have my rent?
Leo jioni kama tutakuwa tumelipa rent, nauza hii simu yako.
Hamna pesa. I need 3 G's to make my nails today.
Sasa hivi natuhusu aje?
Can I order now? Do you ship? Can I get blinking ones?
Mimi nilikuwa na trade. Nimewekelea kitele yangu. Kitele yangu na trade. Nikikunywa maji.
Oh my God. He left me. Nitumie ni live.
Uko nje kuna wifi.
Why? Hi-Fi?
Wait, so what do we call this dish again?
I have no idea.
The
cucumbers are there specifically for my beauty routine.
Tamulini kero umeka kwa beauty product.
Na ameenda.
Tunafaa tukuwe na logo yetu. Like, si ni brand already.
We won't entertain divas.
No. I'm not dealing with a man child.
Amazing. Nishapenda hii energy.
Sundays at 8:30 p.m. on TV47. Saturday at 8:30 p.m.
My father used to tell me that our hotel is the home for travelers. I guess I forgot that. Recently, it's been more of a mirror of my own ambition. Ooh, yeah. We might fail. We will probably fail, but not for a lack of trying. So for the last time, and the first time, welcome to Connect In, the best experience in Eastern Central Africa and its environs.
Saturday at 8:30 p.m. on TV47. Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m.
This is a very serious place.
I see that.
In a landmark judgment that could have far-reaching implications for the country's general election, if not overturned on appeal, the High Court has set August 11, 2027, which falls on a Tuesday, as a legally valid election date, replacing the previously set date of August 10, 2027. The judgment has triggered reactions across the country.
It is just impracticable. Haiwezekani. Kusema kweli, hiyo haiwezekani. Uamuzi huo ukae hivyo. If anything, I don't know, maybe somebody should make an appeal to set the record straight on grounds of inability to enforce that judgment.
In her ruling, Malindi High Court Judge Lady Justice Mugore Thande held that the 5-year term following the August 9, 2022 general election began on August 10, 2022. This means the election must be held within the 5th year and not after its expiry.
That there is no 5-year term anywhere in the law provided to the president, members of parliament, or the governors. They only serve until the next date of the elections. Then the president becomes a temporary incumbent. Members serve as temporary until the next parliament is sworn in.
The judgment arose from a petition filed by Helef Khalifa, Ashea Biko, and Dr. Wiso Wiso, based on Article 136(2)A of the Constitution. The article requires that a presidential election be held on the second Tuesday of August in the 5th year following a presidential election and not after that period.
Coming to the next election, which is supposed to be conducted at 2032 according to the IEBC, with this decision by Lady Justice Mugure Thande, the next election means is going to be guided by this decision, meaning we might be required to do an election in 2030 or 2031 and not 2032. As to who is going to set that election, that election date is going to be guided by Article 136 of the Constitution, the decision by Justice Mugure Thande.
To avoid a constitutional crisis, Justice Mugure Thande suspended the implementation of the declaration, allowing time for any appeals and preventing disruption of the electoral process. The controversy over the election date dates back to 2012, during the country's transition from the Independence Constitution to the 2010 Constitution. At the time, the court allowed Parliament to complete its 5-year term, moving the general election date to March 2013, despite the new constitution providing for a different timeline. Apul Kamau, TV47.
Yes, so what exactly is in a date? Today, it is August 10th, 2026, exactly 1 year to the date that we believe should be the date of the next general election, August 10th, 2027. But someone throws in a span in the works and says that ideally, according to their reading of the Constitution, that date of the election should actually be tomorrow, Tuesday, 11th of August, 2026. Article 136 on the election of the president. 2A, an election of the president shall be held, A, on the same day as a general election of members of parliament, being the second Tuesday in August in every 5th year. Now it's how you do the arithmetic that is the issue here. But the court has made a pronouncement. Fine, we do expect further court action. Probably someone may go to court and appeal. But definitely this could have implications, even if not for this particular electoral cycle. Probably it may be a consideration for the next election, or it could mean that we may need to change or adjust a few things in our constitution. This is where we begin our conversation today, even as we anticipate and mark this countdown, 1 year countdown to the next general election. Today we're privileged to have in studio Wakili Ishmael Nyaribo, karibu sana.
Thank you.
Wakili Kibe Mugai, karibu sana. And political risk analyst Dismas Mokua. The reason why we have the two lawyers with us is because you need to understand this. Fine, we may go to an appeal in court, but something like this, any sort of confusion or lack of clarity in our constitution would require further assistance, probably from the higher courts. Do you believe that there was any error in this judgment by the judge?
No, I don't. I don't think that's an error. It's actually it's a calculation of days and dates, and you know, before a judge reads the judgment, in this case, Justice Thande, she went through all this. She went through all these variables. She thought of this, she thought of the other one, and then she looked at this, she looked at that, and in her view, so that the 11th Tuesday falls on the 5th year. Now, that's where the semantics are, but I wish Kenyans were serious, because Willis Otieno, for example, started bringing this thing long back, about 2 years ago, said we are going to court. I mean, if people were able to listen, if Kenyans were serious about listening, this is something we would have probably sorted last year or year before, so that it doesn't come near to the general elections and then people have to panic. So no, it's not an error. I think it's a proper interpretation that it falls on the 5th year. Now, what is on the 5th year is, I think, what is semantics. And I think as we debate, as we now look at the judgment and the impact it has. Another thing, Fred, you must know is that, never believe politicians, in our country, at least in Kenya, everybody takes advantage of a situation. There are so many people who will be happy with this judgment because they want to go into office tomorrow. But I think as citizens, as analysts, as professionals, as leaders, we must focus on what does it mean to be on the 5th year. And I think this should have even been taken to Parliament so that they discuss. I don't think there's an ambiguity. It is how we have chosen to interpret in pieces our own constitution.
Yes. Wakili Mungai, many politicians will be quick to dismiss this because they cannot anticipate an election tomorrow. It won't happen. It's impractical. But this, if I may call it an anomaly, cannot be left unattended. What should happen? What should Kenyans expect going forward? Where will we get clarity on this?
I think the role of the court is to interpret the Constitution in a manner that is harmonious. And sometimes that interpretations can lead to drastic implications, like the one that were there in this particular matter, where probably an election would be conducted tomorrow. But that issue of disruption of the national calendar and probably political order was taken care of by the order of the judge to say that she has suspended the implementation of that decisions by 1 year. So the country should not focus so much on what is the immediate impact, because it means there is none. Now, but to say that there is no immediate impact on the next general election because it has still been reserved for 2027 doesn't mean that there would be no impact in the subsequent election. Now, the immediate thing would be is that for the next president and of course parliament and other leaders who will be elected in the next election in 2027 is that we will go to the election knowing that that other election would be in 2031. So I do not think that there is an immediate danger, because the moment that one is done, everything would have been reconciled.
Politicians will not want to hear anything like that they are going in for a 4-year term, whether the president or members of parliament.
There is nobody, this is not, you know, a public office, you can even have 3 years. Sometimes, probably like in this scenario, you would have wished politically if it was possible that the years were 4, if the suffering that is going on were to be stopped. So a public office is not something you can say you're entitled to this number of years. The United States of America have always had 4 years, and it is still one of the oldest standing democracies in terms of the elections that have been conducted. So there is nothing that can be able to say you are going 3 or 4 years. So the issue, sometimes you even hear crazy ones who wants a term of 7 years, and you have it even in Africa. And those are the kind of things that the issue of how long is the term can cause serious problems, because sometimes an issue can easily be how much suffering. On the whole, when you look at it across Africa and everywhere, a much longer term or a shorter term, which one is better? You would have very few citizens, for example, in the continent of Africa with around 55 countries, saying that they want longer term for their presidents. So there is no big deal.
Yes.
And in any case, you don't have to vie for elections. It's not like your office. It's a public
There's no entitlement here.
You're not entitlement.
But there's nowhere where, and I could be wrong, but looking at the Constitution, there's nowhere where it's been described or expressly stated that the president is entitled to a 5-year term or a member of the National Assembly. Yes. They just say the date of the election, and they talk about the 5th year. It's only in our political discussions that we've decided that it's a 5-year term. This definitely requires a remedying, but do you think, because we depend too much on these same politicians who are keen on protecting that 5-year term, do you think they'll let us adjust anything here?
You'd have to, okay, you'd have to, in my view, if I may start there, you may have to, you know, if you have to do any fundamental change that requires a referendum, you can't even win it with Kenyans. Kenyans are likely to say that there is anything wrong with a 4-year term. So you'd have to contend with that. And in any case, the issue would be, and it's a hugely political issue. It is like a public office. So many people, you are appointed every day, you are told it's 3 years. It is 4 years. So there would be nothing big deal. There is no person in Kenya, we have 55 million. And out of 55 million, you cannot say that the elective office are likely to be a maximum of 14,000. A group of 14,000 cannot be able to say, like, you are so aggrieved, it is not this number of years. You don't have to fight. As simple as that.
And we must remember that President Uhuru Kenyatta, his first term in office was not 5 years. He served almost 4.5 years or something.
Precisely.
No, actually, almost 4 years and a few months, like 2-3 months. It should not be a big deal.
Actually, it shouldn't be a big deal because, as the two lawyers have indicated, you don't do this thing under duress, that you must run for political office. And you offer yourself for political office, then your tenure should be guided by the constitution. And if the courts have made an interpretation that it's not 5 years, you know, from independence, we've been having elections every 5 years. I think that is where we got the tradition and understanding that probably an election is always 5 years. So if the courts have come up with a decision that is going to be less than 5 years, so be it. The only thing we need is clarity. And I suspect that parties would probably go to the Court of Appeal or to the Supreme Court so that there is clarity and there is no doubt on anybody's mind on the tenure. I also understand, maybe the lawyers would advise, that the only position which is very clear, I understand, is the position for an MCA, but obviously we stand advised. So if it's very clear that an MCA is 5 years, and then the other positions are going to be 4 years, it means that we may get into a place where we're having elections like the US, maybe having 2 elections in a very short space of time.
Yes, but where the framers of this constitution were very keen to ensure that some of these states are protected. One of them is Article 89, where review and delimitation of boundaries had a certain timeline that we obviously defied, without consequence, I must say, that nothing happened. We defied it.
Who is we?
As Kenyans, because collectively, we collectively defied that express provision of the Constitution in as far as the date is concerned. We look set to defy another provision, setting a date. If we continue with this trend, what are we saying about this Constitution? We can say 2/3 majority, we don't have to bother with that. Boundaries review, nothing will happen. Election date, let's just move on.
Yeah. And you see, people with the facilities and the tools of power are actually the problem, because, I mean, we have the gender rule also, that everybody knows it should be implemented, but it just cannot be implemented. So, yeah, I think this is why we complain, Fred, about governance anyway, because if the people with power can easily say, today they can say, no, we must implement this, then there would be no problem. But you know that even boundaries are being adjusted politically to satisfy certain whims or a certain class of people. Otherwise, if the IEBC was allowed to do its work, I mean, there is no way that you can disregard or disobey the Constitution when you're supposed to do things within a certain timeline. It's really about the people in power, yes.
Then that contradicts what Wakili Kibe Mungai was saying, that it cannot be that this small group of 14,000 elected leaders can be the one leading us this way. But apparently they are.
But you have seen. Really.
Yeah, the part of the issue, and that has been an ongoing argument in Kenya, is that the implementation of the Constitution, I think it is something that ought to be repeated. The implementation of the Constitution, you see, historically, you have a situation in which people who are very strong supporters of the old constitutions, people who cannot be described by Democrats of much shade, have ended up having Uhuru had 10, William Ruto had 10, one is an extreme of the other, so that you have had a situation in which, so to speak, enemies of the Constitution, 2010 Constitution, have been responsible for the implementation of the Constitution. That cannot be an ideal situation. The issue when you talk about boundaries, underlying the politics that we've been having in Kenya, and even people saying we want 7 term, we don't want these. You heard they have recruited Ethicon, the chairman of the Electoral and Boundaries Commission, to try and somehow imagine crisis that can enable you as a chairman of Electoral Commission to avoid an election. This is, there is a professor of law, all of us know him, called Professor Ben Wabweze. He said, wrote a long time ago, that the challenge of constitutionalism in Africa has always been the willingness of the people elected in accordance with the constitutions to govern in accordance with it. This is a historical problem that we've had, so that you find a situation where the constitution says you will go to an election and submit. It's during the term that you've been there. But you find even that one, people asking, how are we, and you find a we, how are we going not to serve 10 years like anybody else, or 2 terms like anybody else? And you think and you see the way the country is going. People can even drive the country to civil war over an entitlement of something that is a privilege. Leadership of a country is a privilege. When you fail a country in a democracy, people with good scruples, you'd expect that you would say, there is no good reason for me to go on. But when you start now from the point of view of subversion of the Constitution, because like the issue of boundaries, and there are some cases that have been going on, many Kenyans don't know. There's been this expectation that some court would somehow say that the failure to demarcate the Constitution would take away the legal necessity to have an election in 2027. This is subversion. Subversion of the Constitution is treason. But unfortunately, we do not have working DPPs. We do not have working institutions. We also have situations, for example, where the Supreme Court said you cannot sue the president. But a lot of these schemes, like to subvert the Constitution, ensure there is no IEBC in time, this has been treasonous actions by the president. But again, you have a whole Supreme Court saying the president cannot be taken to court, cannot be sued. But in my view, the only way to uphold the constitutions, and we shall be fighting that in another case, is the day that Kenyans are able and the courts accept their responsibility to ensure the president is stopped from engaging in constant treason.
I know it's your time this much, but this is what I wanted to say. 14,000 people, even 12, even 10,000 people who are extremely toxic will not discuss, for example, such a proposal contained in a judgment, because it has been suspended. That's why I'm calling it a proposal for now. They will not discuss it because they are seeing as if it is them actually, being targeted. And that's where the problem is. And it's not only in this judgment, it is actually across the board. That's why we have had missing young people. That's why we have had all other constitutional provisions not being implemented yet.
Right. But there must be a risk in this, that if at all the Constitution can continuously be violated or defied or just ignored without consequence, there will be something at the end of it, don't you think? Where is the weakest link? Is it our judiciary that a failure to actually implement or even interpret some of these provisions of the Constitution conclusively with consequence? That is what is leading us to this.
In my view, the challenge is that there are no pecuniary nor criminal consequences for failure to respect the Constitution. And in my view, it's not really about implementing the Constitution. It's a failure of the leadership to respect the Constitution. You remember the Constitution has got inbuilt mechanisms on how it was supposed to be implemented. We've had several committees, several commissions to ensure that the requisite pieces of legislation were created. But when it comes to respecting the Constitution, in fact, the first person who failed to respect the Constitution was President Kibaki. You remember the appointment of Justice Visram as the Chief Justice and the President of the Supreme Court. It took Mr. Raila Odinga to say, wait a minute, no. That is how you got Dr. William Mutunga coming in. So in my view, it's about checks and balances. It's the people who have got a responsibility, leadership responsibility, to just respect the Constitution. But if you are going to just play easy-willy and people disrespect the Constitution and there are no consequences, then it will keep on mutating and people will keep on disrespecting it. And it's not just limited to Kenya. Even the US Supreme Court stands accused, or people, especially the Democrats, they're accusing the US Supreme Court of kissing Donald Trump's ring, because it becomes very powerful, it becomes overbearing. And at the same time, there are conversations, and the two lawyers would probably give us more insights, that at some stage, members of the judiciary are compromised to take decisions either way. There are even conversations that law should be a second degree. If you follow conversations on social media, even on this issue of 5, they were saying, is this 5 a legal issue or a mathematical issue? Now, the people who are responsible for giving us the Constitution are the ones, again, who are responsible for this mischief. But at the end of the day, in my view, we've got ourselves to blame. We are talking about these 14,000 or so elected leaders, but who places them in office? As we approach the next election, everybody is complaining about governance. But when the rubber is about to meet the road, people abandon meritocracy. People abandon character, competence, and capacity. They go to their tribal cocoons and elect people who have no leadership capacity. People cannot even be the chairman of that WhatsApp Matanga. We give them leadership position. I mean, for instance, where the constitution says that Kenya must be a multi-party nation, that we have embraced multi-party politics, and political parties must have the face of Kenya. Now, you have one political party called DCP, which has created a vetting committee made up of people from one ethnic group. Now, how do you describe that as democracy? Is there going to be a pecuniary or a criminal consequence or liability for that? No. The people who are kissing Rigathi ring are saying, this is the best decision. Please vet. There are some people we don't want here. And on the extreme side, is referring people who are not aligned to DCP as traitors. Is that not violating the Kenyan constitution? Are there going to be any consequences? No. Instead, it's going to be handed flowers. Somebody's giving him a red rose every day. So in my view, we must sit back and stop blaming our elected leaders. Because one of the responsibilities of a leader is to the elected leaders is to represent us. So the people you see at the National Assembly, the people you see at the Senate and county assemblies, they are representing our interests. Now, some of the sharpest tools in the shed that one would expect to go to the political space, they've abandoned that space. And what happens after every election? They go to the top of Mount Kenya, literally, and complain about the quality of leadership, yet they did not offer themselves for the political competition. And if they did everything guided by their tribal interests.
All right.
Yeah, Fred, I don't think
very
that's
briefly,
very honest.
We need to go on a break.
That's a very honest analysis. But still, it remains that we should actually put on check the leadership. That's the main thing. I mean, if you go to Gachagua right now, honestly, I mean, it's a new party. It's coming up now. And, for example, he understands the kind of pressure under which we play politics in the country. Here are leaders who are definitely trying to crash such a new party. And he is aware that the political base and the only place I get full support will be here. And so he cannot allow, for example, people come from wherever they come just because of democratic, approaches. Like, you have to be democratic. When your own party, even leadership, is not actually democratic. So I think on that, I can just say, it is okay. We can also advise him as a citizen and as a leader. But the main problem is at the doorstep of people in governance and in leadership today. Those are the people we must check.
Just before we go for a break, something small on that particular issue. The clarifications that needs to be done is that the assurance of multi-party democracy in Kenya, for example, would mean that across the country, which is likely to be the scenario in the coming general election, all seats should be competed for by as many parties as possible. There is no politician, unless with the force of the state, incapable of preventing, for example, Munya's party or Democratic Party from offering candidates for office. For example, anywhere in Mount Kenya or anywhere else in Kenya. And finally, the issue of traitors that my colleague is talking about, the way it is understood there is different. It is actually Rigathi Gachagua himself. People may not know that politics, who has been more open to receiving people associated with UDA to come and contest for office. Okay. The traitor issue, the way it is coming in, is for the people to say, you cannot just betray a community for 5 years. Then you think you are eligible. Now when you have formed a party for the people, to come and say you are competing for office with other people. All right. It's a political discussion, and it is also without merit. I'm not a politician. I will not be voting for anything. But I would have difficulty that, for example, if you are Kimani Ichung'wah, you must just come with UDA.
Discipline.
You can't come to...
Fred, please.
Allow us to take a break. I know. We really have to take a break. You're watching TV47. The main question and how we started was about the election date. Is Ruto a temporary incumbent? That's a question on the front page of the People Daily. It is one of the implications of that pronouncement by that judge in Malindi. But yes, she also suspended implementation of the same. So probably this question may not be as valid, but definitely a question nonetheless. Would this mean that the next election, come 2027, would only get people who will be elected for a period of only 4 years? That is also one of the implications. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we consider more of the 1 year to the general election.
Hey, Nyumba.
This is the place.
Just for a few days.
Rule number 2.
Kwani Google inajua maisha yangu wewe?
That's my seat. It's a chair. It was hers.
You're new here?
Yes.
You learned the rhythm.
This place is run by structure. Structure.
It is a system. Ni venye tu ni system haisikizi.
And what happens if something you haven't chosen enters your day?
I remove it.
That's not always going to be possible here.
Then you are going to have a problem.
Noted.
What are you planning? To escape from a resort?
This is not a resort, my friend. This is a storage.
Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. on TV47.
Nairobi, where the hustle never sleeps and neither do the scammers.
Link up, we are talking about something that's affecting all of us. We are talking trust.
We're diving into the campus life.
Stay fresh, stay safe.
Stay linked up.
My father used to tell me that
All right, welcome back. It is exactly 365 days to the date of the next general election, August 10th, 2027. That date, yes, in some quarters is being debated, is a matter of debate whether or not that should be the date. But for all intents and purposes, an election tomorrow would be impractical. So let's just focus on the 2027 date. So 1 year to go. What are we looking at? According to the latest poll surveys, President William Ruto still in the lead to become president, but with a much reduced approval rating of even below 30%, followed now in recent weeks by Edwin Sifuna, who's edged big names like Kalonzo Musyoka and Fred Matiang'i, and he now follows President William Ruto in as far as approval ratings are concerned. But is that the main concern that we have right now, that it's one term, two term? Do you think we will sustain that debate of one term, two term? And let me start with the Wakili Kibe Mungai, one term, two term to the end up till election day. Do you think that will be, or do we have a possibility of changing the discussion? Remember, there's still the national dialogue that the president called for, still this week in 2 days' time, to discuss about Vision 2060. Do you think that could change the wind or the narrative?
Okay, first of all, let me say that to say the Kenya to have a long-term economic planning is a good thing, very good thing in itself. But there are two issues which have been picked by very many people. That issue is one, under what circumstances do you carry this discussion? We've already, over the last 1 year, been having high-octane politics already in Kenya. Now, in an election year, to say the leader of one of the coalition of the two-term to come and say, we are thinking about the long-term issue in Kenya, the natural question that begs are two. Number one, on what basis would you, with a mandate to, and a manifesto to implement, be refocusing Kenyans on the future of generations that have not voted for you, when the serious majority, going by opinion polls, is already saying, for purposes of the actual work you are supposed to do, you are not doing it. There is also the second issue of timing. Like this discussion, assuming you are in the position of President William Ruto, and you are a two-term, you can also be able to say, to depoliticize this issue is not really to tell people that let us not have a political debate. It is actually to say that as a matter of principle, one of the things, because the time for Vision 2030 is not yet over, I'll focus for Vision 2030, but because we cannot wait until 2030 to carry out a discussion for what comes after it, if I'm re-elected, or whoever gets re-elected, the first duty ought to be to decide how Kenya after 2030 should move forward. That would depoliticize everything. But as of now, you see many commentators saying, and they are right to a very good extent, that it is of course another scheme now that, sorry to use the words, now that a lot of promises and lies associated with the current things can no longer be able to get traction, then package lies that I am still your best hope for a future for citizens who are yet to be born. And that is why we say, who even at personal level, you are tested for what you do with your children, not for what you promise to do for your grandchildren. Therefore, there is the question of bona fides. The good faith, that you are probably not doing it in good faith. And number two is, of course, the concern that who leads in ensuring that you bring down the political temperature? Leaders of opposition and any other person who is seeking power can afford to every day be able to engage in political events, because there is nothing else that you are doing, and your work is to critique what is going on. The tragedy for Kenya appears to be when everybody, including the president, is on the suntop of the Nini, is on the rooftop of motor vehicle, going on to campaign every day. Because the question now then becomes, at what stage are you doing your job? Because the other people may say on a day-to-day basis, they don't report to any office. So if I don't go to the office, my small office as a lawyer, it registers some loss, because Kibe didn't report to work. The same case would apply to the presidency, if you ask me. And that's why I say, and the standard that Kibaki set, Kibaki would sit back in 2 terms. He would sit back in engaging in politics until 6 months. In fact, the last 3 months is when he would be very active with politics. But now you are having a situation whereby for 2 straight years, he's been campaigning over and over. We're having delegations, which are clearly political delegations, coming to State House like almost every other day. So that even in Kenya, in fact, that's my last point on this, in Kenya, as we move forward to the next elections, I keep saying, I was saying it over the weekend when I was reanalyzing the issue, that the biggest tragedy for Kenya as we go for 2027 may not even be that President William Ruto was very corrupt or anything. The issue, if you ask me, may actually be that for 5 years, William Ruto did work that constitutionally, when you look at it, belongs to the governor. Markets, small things, but the big job of the presidency, nobody did it. So that when you look at even what the governor of Central Bank, the minister, when he was talking the other day, are situations in which the CEO was more interested in procurement work, the work of a general manager, and the work of everybody else, except the actual work of a CEO, which nobody could do. That may ultimately be the greatest issue about any tragedy that may be suffered from the Ruto presidency, if you ask me.
In the lead up to the 2022 elections, there was a lot of hustler this, Mama Mboga, bottom up. And one wonders if at all we are looking forward to something similar right now. The accusations about the United Alternative Government is that you still don't have an agenda. Hakuna kitu munasema, ni 2-term, 1-term, 1-term, 2-term. Do you see that changing in this final year, final stretch? Or do you just believe it will be political rhetoric and chance?
Well, there are two pertinent issues. If you allow me to respond to the initial one, there's a very high probability that DCP is going to have a sizable number of elected leaders, and they'll qualify for resources from the political parties' funds. In other words, Mora is going to fund DCP. So any taxpayer in Kenya, any citizen in Kenya, should be bothered if there are any undemocratic tendencies within DCP. So we don't need to go and speak to political anthropologists to understand the definition of a traitor. But when you have a leader saying that who has decided to nationalize his personal issues with President Ruto and is suffocating multi-party democracy within a part of Kenya, that is an issue of concern. Now,
but it should be noted, let's be fair to DCP, they have candidates, they have represented leaders elected in Western Kenya and in Masai as well.
Well, they could be, because majority of the...
Taken part in by-elections elsewhere beyond the Mount Kenya region as well.
The situation in Kenya is that while we generally have the conversation that political parties in Kenya are anchored on philosophies, ideas, or ideologies, in fact, they're anchored by powerful personalities, and they've got a core base. That is where you hear, when you are describing politicians, you say, is stronghold, which is a physical location. It's not an intellectual stronghold. It's a physical location. People who've been beaten, that if you do not kiss his ring, then you're going to be described as a traitor. Kibeya, and unsurprisingly so, is already mentioned a number of political leaders who have been described as traitors. And he talks about the Kenyan constitution, which is supposed to give you freedom of speech, association, movement. So as analysts, we owe a duty to Mora and Alima to call a spade so that we make progress. Otherwise, the constitution we are talking about, multi-party democracy, will be a complete waste of time. We may just decide to go and ask King Charles to come back to Kenya. If we come up with a constitution,
are you suggesting that the elections in 2027 will be more tribal than what we witnessed in 2017, 2022?
It's going, 2013? The next election, next year, is going to be nothing more than a tribal census. There are people... I mean, political parties in Kenya are organized based on ethnicity. If you look at the emerging powerful politicians, that we may describe them as tier 1 politicians, the first thing they do is they go to their village, beat up everybody in their village into a pulp and harmonize them. And then you come to the national level. You may have realized a number of people saying that when you're going to discuss the probability or the opportunity of having one presidential candidate, you must come with numbers. You must demonstrate numbers. You hear Mr. Rigathi Gachagua talking about 10 million voters. You hear another politician talking about X number of voters. We must be very critical and ask ourselves, if you're going to do a tribal census, then where is the place of meritocracy? If you are not going to embrace people with character, capacity, and competence anchored in meritocracy, then you're not going to have somebody like Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. Then you're not going to have somebody like the president of Tanzania coming on board. And these conversations, they are very uncomfortable. People feel jittery, but we must look at people in the eye and call a spade a spade.
Yes.
This is the challenge we have with our politics in Kenya.
And I'm looking at a re-election post-2010 after the new constitution and the arrangements that these political leaders had, the NASAs of this world, the Pentagon and all these groupings. I don't see it as being as tribal as the kind of conversations we're having now. Yes. That after 3 successful elections that were not considered tribal, now we've just gone back to tribal.
We have been pushed to this, Fred. I mean, and this is where, I mean, I know Dismas, we've been analyzing for the longest time. And unless he's holding another view, he's democratic, he's very, very open and frank. But I'm not feeling it come from him on this particular issue of tribalism. If a person, we are not supposed to break into people's houses, but if there is a crime happening in somebody's house, you have a right to break and get inside. Gachagua is a complete modern day politician who understands the tricks done in State House and also done by the politicians. And he's fully aware. And what he's doing actually is reminding them, I know you like tribalism, and I'm going to stand with my tribe. And let's see how far we drive it. So we don't support tribalism, and we shouldn't. But if the only way for you is to go back to your base, that is what you must do. And that's where you can see that when Sifuna goes to the Western, it is all wild. And when Kalonzo goes to Ukambani, that's it. And when Fred went to Kisii, you saw what happens.
Which Fred?
Ndimuli. There can only be one Fred.
No, there's Fred in Ndimuli here.
So you saw how Kisii is received.
You're talking about Fred Matiang'i.
I'm talking about Fred Matiang'i for sure. Yeah.
Just for clarity.
Yeah. FOM. So there is nothing wrong when you understand the game and the rules of the game as per that moment. You look at when we're doing marathon, there is these runners who are keen and they bring out their elbows and you can't actually outsmart him. So what do you do? Like we've seen some runners, you take a totally different position and bypass that particular runner. So Gachagua has been in this position, has been pushed there. And he has decided, come rain or sunshine, my life is meant for this, I will say the facts. And that's why you see him. It's not easy actually for many Kenyans to do that. So why are we there? Because in Kenya Kwanza in 2022, Fred, you asked 2022, we went into the hustler movement. And we believed that the common man will set the agenda of the day, economically, socially, and politically. Then it was taken away from us. So now we are discussing murders and kidnappings. We can't even discuss them because we are not qualified in the sense that we don't know what happened. It is the police who know. Now, the head of state has brought another agenda, important agenda for sure. But why should it be that the head of state will speak of an agenda that has not emanated from the people? Of course, he can suggest yes. But would it not be so good if we, this week on 12th, if we go to wherever, KICC or wherever, and discuss the 2030 vision? Or has it been properly implemented? Which were the weak areas? How can we then probably, just after 2027, immediately after 2027, engage on the 2060 vision? So these trying to divert us from 2027 and the ills that are, in fact, I can tell you, probably President William Ruto would have done best if only the people around him were not scavenging on him. I mean, you've heard of what's happening in the State House. I hear they are being given money every day. We had the watchmen being given money. I also heard that even that money is again diverted. Amongst when they are sharing, you are saying 27,000 people came to State House, but probably 20 people came to State House. So the people around the head of state have let him down, and he feels it today. He probably, as a human being, doesn't know what to do right now, because so now we have to go to 2060 discussion, diverting our attention. Kenyans are learned, Fred. I mean, in fact, when you check the larger population of people in this country, we all understand. We understand the head of state could be in some catch-24 and because of the people who are advising him. We understand that he could have done better if he was probably not advised to focus on Gachagua, fire him, and then now, for a whole 2-year period, he's not had the peace to work. So, but now the question is, are you honest when you divert us to 2060? Or you can say, let's meet at KICC, let's just analyze what happened. Then now in 2028, there is still time. Guys can write proposals overnight today and give us a proper document for Vision 2060. Okay. So I think this is diversionary.
Still comparing previous elections, I feel that this time around there's been too much focus on one particular region, the Mount Kenya region. Every day we wake up, it's Mount Kenya this, Mount Kenya that, Mount Kenya East, West, everything. Should this be, or do you think the president, in his wisdom or lack of, created that problem, that now, for the next 1 year, heading to the elections, every discussion around Kenya's politics is around Mount Kenya? Please,
Mungai, before Mungai, Mungai now, he comes from that Mount Kenya. So let me just caution him. Mount Kenya are many by nature. That's how we see you guys. There are many, number one. And I think to some extent they actually go blindly. Sometimes it looks like they are seeing, but sometimes they go blindly, because in 2022, you actually went blindly. The whole of Mount Kenya stood somewhere. Then you are cheated. Then now, again, in my humble view, you are going blindly to a certain direction, because you see, I overheard somewhere in the weekend that they probably might actually have somebody again come from there to stand as president. And yet...
That was a question, because so far, no presidential candidate.
And yet you had promised, Fred, that you're likely to support a smaller tribe. So that is the feeling. So, but my point is, Kibe, I know you're fully set, I mean, you're able to understand where I'm coming from. The point is, when you are too many, you tend to make some blunders that you shouldn't make. And you become so full of probably yourself.
Yes. Okay. The fact that Mount Kenya does not have a presidential candidate as it is right now, yet a lot of focus is there. Why is that? Do you see that sustaining to the end?
First of all, Fred Matiang'i, I don't know who promised him that he will get the presidency on a silver platter. Nobody promised him that. If he was promised by one or two people associated with Mount Kenya, he will get those 2 votes from those people. Now,
are you saying you have jumped?
More important issue. You have not told us who promised him, because as Mount Kenya, nobody has been promised anything. Number 2, when we talk about the issue of people who are perceived as enemies of the people, as traitors, it is not something that is done casually. It is a situations whereby the people expected A. The president wanted B. You have consistently chosen for B. The English word, the only one that can be there, is that if consistently you've disagreed with me on a matter that loyalty was expected from you, it is called betrayals. People who engage in betrayal are known as traitors in English. So there is no contradiction whatsoever. If every time you chose to go on the Ruto side and against the people, you are a traitor. And you should not have a problem with paying the penalty that historically, when this is politically, has been paid by traitors. But let me go now to the actual real question that we have here. Why do you have this obsession, fascination with Mount Kenya? It's a simple one. When you look at the multi-party politics from 1992, you would see that you've always had situations whereby there were candidates from central Kenya. Now, because there have always been candidates from central Kenya since 1992, in 2022 there was a difference. There was no candidate at least at the presidency, the main level, the presidency level, from Mount Kenya.
There was a candidate.
No, not those ones. Mount Kenya means real candidates. The candidates for Mount Kenya was William Ruto and William Ruto and Raila Odinga. That's where the division occurred. And it was something across both the gamer communities in Mount Kenya. Okay, those were the candidates. Don't bother about also run-ins. Don't count those ones. Now, the issue therefore, there is this expectation that, in 2027, the situation would replicate itself. I have bad news for those people who imagine that. Raila Odinga was given there to be the, what do you call it? The minority. Raila Odinga has ended up being with William Ruto, okay, before he died. And therefore, people perceive there was betrayal from Raila Odinga. On William Ruto's side, he decides also to impeach Rigathi Gachagua, the acknowledged leader of the region. Now, when that happens, one part of the lessons would be, we thought that we would be nationalist. Those people, whichever side we went, there will be some fidelity to our political view. But now people see a double betrayal, because today you are getting a hit from other people associated with William Ruto. You're also getting an equal hit from people associated with Raila Odinga. So that now when you reach that situations where you are, and that is the conversations, people would say, you in 2022, you assert your position. If you win, you're part of the presidency. If you lose, you are directly the opposition. And people can live with that. There is nobody who is afraid. Because there are people, and this conversation was there over the weekend, that, oh, people are afraid. If unless you forfeit your political rights to the presidency, that is vying, people will re-elect William Ruto. But their conversation is now, if lawyers and kisses can stand 5 years of misrule or 5 years of economic despondency from William Ruto, definitely the Kikuyus can. So you cannot have the Ruto scarecrow that we shall re-elect Ruto if you offer yourself for re-election. That will not happen. Finally, the inarticulate argument that my colleague here is trying to say. There is this inarticulated argument, first of all, under the Constitution, Rigathi Gachagua can be able to vie under Article 99 of the Constitution, number one. Number two, the second thing he's also been saying is that if the DCP coalition decides to have somebody to vie, it doesn't have to be him. So that is, in other words, preparing everybody to see that if a decision is made at that level, that DCP will go for the presidency, they will go for the presidency. And you cannot, so that, therefore the issue of obsession with court, that somehow the courts will buy into this conspiracy to use the courts to lock out somebody vis-a-vis Article 138. People are waiting to see whether the Court of Appeal is actually going to do that, to endorse that. So that the inarticulate argument that now people are not saying is that, oh, there is somehow a problem that you shouldn't offer somebody as a prize for ensuring there is one term. But the truth of the argument is, in a multi-party democracy, who decides that? This is a boardroom decision. So you have people saying, I'm a Democrat, but they cannot stand a simple democratic rule. In Kenya, there are two routes to the presidency, first round or second round. In the 2027 elections, my own projections is that it will be a three-horse race. And in a three-horse race, for those people who believe in democracy, the people decide who gets to the runoff.
And one of the horses in that three-horse race will be from Mount Kenya?
The DCP will have a horse.
There will be a DCP candidate?
There will be a DCP horse. Okay. There should be a Western Kenya horse. And of course, there will be a William Ruto horse. That is the most likely scenario. And we shall be here to be able to see.
Leading us to a runoff.
Leading us to a runoff. So the people of Kenya, let me finish. The people of Kenya decides that issue. But the inarticulate argument is where people want to go and say, oh, we entered into a hotel boardroom somewhere at Upper Hill, and there was a scientific formula that does not involve the people,
and we were
and we say,
and
someone was so and so. No, that will not happen.
Fred, let me say something.
It will not happen.
Okay. Let me tell you. And this is why Rigathi Gachagua, after being impeached, has gone the direction he has gone, which is, I think, nobody in democratic space is criticizing him the way State House is criticizing him. But this is the danger, that when you are just looking into yourself throughout, and I started by saying the Mount Kenya are many, when you look at yourself, you are locking out your friends. You're actually looking at a large number of friends who want to identify with you, but because you're looking inwards and not outwards, then you lose those friends. And then what do these lost friends do? They go on the opposite side where you are.
Nobody's afraid of that.
No, it's not about being afraid, Kibe. What I'm saying is, in a democracy, you need to know who shares your values and your principles. Don't throw them out because they are either small or they are not as a large number.
There is actually no value. It's exclusion, politics of exclusion.
Yes, Dismas, do you believe that that's the route we're taking? That we've been talking about the unity of the opposition, but probably it won't go that way?
There's no unity in the opposition. I mean, panelists have spoken about many candidates.
Some are too entitled.
Yeah, and we've indicated times above number. Like, for instance, you cannot lose your bet as to whether or not Dr. Kalonzo Musyoka is going to run. Dr. Kalonzo Musyoka is going to be in the ballot.
He will be.
He is not going to sacrifice his presidential interest for any other person. He's done it on more than 3 occasions, and he believes that this is his best time. Now, the unfortunate thing we have in Kenya today, and it's being driven even by the elite or the so-called middle class, is everybody is crying for solid leadership. Everybody has got an insatiable appetite for solid leadership. But when the rubber is meeting the road, when the people are supposed to take those critical decisions, even for Kenya's elite, the scholars, practitioners, guys who have embraced best practices, who talk about Botswana, who talk about Singapore, who talk about South Korea, who talk about UK, then suddenly they go back to their tribal enclaves and remember their DNA, that this is my community, this is my tribe. It's for that reason that we'll keep on crying every single day that we've got a crisis of leadership in Kenya. Because if, for instance, you come from a marginalized community like I do, then probability of somebody from my community becoming a president on the basis that you have to present numbers on the table is 0. That is why some people hear of Dr. Fred Matiang'i that is running for president, then they start, others start yawning, others start laughing, saying, can you place your numbers on the table? And a gentleman by the name of Mr. Rigathi Gachagua has indicated times above number that the only determinant factor is going to be numbers. On the other hand, they're saying, can we get a scientific, a 3-tier level of identifying a presidential candidate?
Why wouldn't Fred Matiang'i just run for president without necessarily working with anyone else, if he believes he can get the support from the rest of the country?
Well, these panelists and Kenyans have agreed that it's going to be a tribal census. So if you're going to do a tribal census, you don't need to be a NASA scientist.
Isn't that a decision by the political class? Is it a decision by the Kenyans?
The Constitution provides for that.
It's
a numbers game.
It's a decision which has been buttressed by people who are majority and who marginalize the rest of the nation. Then you did ask a very pertinent question that President Ruto has politicized the nation and on the issue of the national conversation and whether we are going to be having a 1-term or 2-term conversation. In my view, from today henceforth, anybody who assumes office, even if it's not President Ruto is taking a 2nd term, anybody who assumes office, there'll be the conversation about 1 term. You remember, at some stage, people were saying, yote yatawezekana bila Moi. After Moi left office, a couple of days later, there was a feeling of nostalgia. Then they were also saying, yote yatawezekana bila Kibaki. After Kibaki leaves office, a few days there is a nostalgia. Then for President Kenyatta, yote yatawezekana bila Kenyatta. After a few days he leaves office, there is a nostalgia. So anybody who assumes office today must be ready for those chances. Yote yatawezekana bila, assuming I become the president, yote yatawezekana bila Mokwa, there'll be that regular chance. But the decision we must ask ourselves is, when we're electing these people, are you being elected to office simply based that you come from a community with numbers, or it's because we've gone to the marketplace, you've presented your ideas and people are buying them? Now, I'd like to respond to an issue raised by Mr. Nyaribo, highly regarded lawyer. When he says that a community voted blindly, I don't know whether that is appropriate, because at that point in time, they had taken a decision and they had urgency. Now, if they vote in a manner that does not make you happy or is not aligned to your interests or your biases, I don't think you've got capacity to say that a certain community voted blindly in a particular way. Okay. Every person in Kenya, provided you are above the age of 18, you can decide to vote on a tribal basis, on a religious basis, as you deem fit. I mean, you remember, Professor James Ole Kiapi ran for president. Well, it was very clear that he wouldn't even master the numbers, but there are people who voted for him based on his capacity, competence, character, and meritocracy. So if particular people in Kenya decide to vote based on their second name or based on ethnicity or based on church, so be it. All of us are going to be in this nation, and unfortunately, we'll suffer the consequences. If people take certain decisions, all of us here will suffer the consequences. Okay. And I don't think there's any person with capacity to say that that was the wrong decision or it was the right decision.
Okay.
Just right of reply, just one word. I think we can settle this. I have seen pictures of possible presidential candidates. And I just wanted to say, and if you hear...
It has included your preferred...
This man's thesis is that 2027 will be a tribal census. What we are saying is now everybody is clever. If it will be tribal census, then every one of our tribes will have to stand behind their man. That is the whole matrix.
Yet for the first time, Wakile Kibe Mungai, for the first time in a very long time, we've seen a different kind of activity during this electoral cycle between 2022 and TV47. What happened in 2024 with the Gen Z? How come we are quick to dismiss that? How come we do not see like it will be a factor come next year? We see the Sifuna factor, and we see the excitement around that demographic when they talk about Sifuna, Mimi Sifuna. How come so far, as you discuss, no one has mentioned that name?
Thank you for asking me that, because the people who are talking about tribalism are these two. The issue, and tribalism in Kenya, the common denominator is when you want to talk about what Kikuyus will do or will not do. Why do I support a 3-horse race? I will today say on national television, what is the reason for that? People keep on asking that. The reason for that is that if we have another 2-horse race, that is the quickest guarantee that it will be a tribal vote. Because all that it means is that these people will go, and it will be the major politicians, the ones you are seeing on this headline, going to say, oh, I will bring this, I will bring that. Nobody would talk about the Gen Z or anybody else. So it will be a boardroom decision made on ethnic basis. It is the only basis for a boardroom decision. So that from the starting point is, if you are for the boardroom, you are actually a tribalist. The only way, and I have checked the numbers, if Gen Z, they vote as Gen Z, they can either be able to get between 7 to 12 million for purposes of the voter register that we shall be having next year. That voting of those Gen Z is capable of changing the outcome of a general election. But now it is important to know this, that it is highly unlikely that in a boardroom, any candidate for the Gen Z will actually go to the election. So that for purposes of the next election, of course you have Sifuna, who on the face of
no one can come to the boardroom and claim
and say, I'm Gen
Gen
Z.
Yeah.
Precisely. Everybody says Gen Z are with me. So that this is a test that must be put to the ground and say, in round number 1 with a 3-horse race, it ensures that nobody wins. And that's guaranteed. Nobody will win in a 3-horse race. So we go to the second round. Now for the second round, that is where the full weight of the Gen Z would be felt. Because even if they were to vote just 7 million as Gen Z, whoever in the second round who gets a Gen Z on his side becomes president of Kenya. That is what, in my view, would forever rest this argument of a number of old men and 1 or 2 old women getting into a hotel and effectively saying these are the people the presidency of Kenya is going to come from here. If you want to kill this ethnicity, you must take presidential politics from the hotel rooms and to the ground. Let the people decide who gets to the runoff. Our constitution is like the one of France. But you have people disguising themselves. You want Kalonzo, you are a Mkamba, or you are a Fred Matiang'i, you want a Mkisi, you want an endorsement in a hotel. As you have correctly posted, if Fred Matiang'i says Gen Z wako na wewe, then even if your community is small, Gen Z are very many. That guarantees you can get to the second round, isn't it? But they are contradictory. You want to say, oh, the young people who are tribeless Kenya are with me. But you don't want to test it. So you cannot be a Democrat and an ethnic kingpin simultaneously.
Fred,
you follow the rules
Fred,
and you let the people decide that.
Even as you respond to that, it is indeed true that there's a crop of politicians who are a bit entitled to this candidature of running for president, but they're not really putting in the work.
And the way this must put it, I mean, I don't think Kalonzo Musyoka is unreasonable from his history. He's been giving way for democracy. I do not think that he has said enough is enough, and I don't think he should say that. In fact, he's a Christian, and the Bible says that never be tired of doing good. So, where I want to differ with Kibe here, okay, the reasons, by the way, why, for example, Raila Odinga lost in 2022 were technical issues. Not that he did not muscle the numbers, it were technical issues. And the way Kenyan political terrain is, if you're just going to say, let us all go run and the people will decide, the truth of the matter from what we have been seeing is that is a democratic exercise, yes. But then, especially coming against William Ruto, you're going to hit yourselves on the wall. And what I hear my colleagues saying is, so what? Let's hit ourselves on the wall and come back in the rerun. I don't think we have that muscle as a country, whether it is Gen Z or Fred, Gachagua or Maraga or Martha Karua. The boardroom is not entirely bad the way it has been painted. The boardroom is good to say,
it has failed.
Do you think that, do you think that, okay, if we go this way, we are better off, or the other way? And then you come and tell the people, this is what we have decided. If the people don't like that, for sure, then they will be like, let's all go to the run. But if you just go haphazardly to William Ruto, the truth of the matter is he will actually scatter all of you.
If you look at the dailies for the past 2-3 weeks, there are particular faces that keep appearing. One of them definitely is President William Ruto, who's running for re-election. The other one is Rigathi Gachagua's former deputy, and then Edwin Sifuna. Don't you agree that there is a crop of these other politicians who are just waiting for that boardroom?
Oh, which we are disappointed, by the way.
And doing very little to actually show their interest.
Let me say here, we are disappointed at Kalonzo and Fred, for example. They're disappointed because that's me.
I would ask you to keep referring to Fred Matiang'i because we are calling
No, we are disappointed. Why? Because the whole wave was for Fred, for example, at one time. Then he chose to practice certain politics which are confusing, to be very honest and forthright. They are confusing. Even like, I want to know what he's doing in the weekend, I don't know. Then all of a sudden, you come to hear that he was in Kehanja or doing something small, like for a minister or for I mean, maybe somebody who wants to become, you know, a minister for health or something like that. But for a presidential mobilization, we've only seen it come from Mr. Rigathi Gachagua and now Sifuna. But even Martha Karua, I mean, is she even contesting? So we, as a people, our all energies were to Fred, to...
Which Fred?
Fred Matiang'i, to Sifuna, actually, yes, to Gachagua. But then others have decided, I probably now, this is where I agree with him when he says, they are, instead of coming to the people, they are going to the boardroom. In that respect, I don't think we have been assisted. If all the presidential candidates picked up their wave, their flowers, it was actually up to them. It was for them to say what they want, and we oblige. They did not do that, and that is why when Sifuna came, he stole the wave, because nobody was utilizing it. So, in my humble view, people sitting down together to agree on how the country should go is not entirely bad. But anybody sitting and waiting that, oh, I think it will be me, that is where I also agree with Kibe that you cannot go to the boardroom to make some agreements when you have no fuel. I mean, you have no fire in you. Yeah. So presidency requires that you actually go out and meet the people, they abuse you, they insult you, and then finally you agree. That's how we know whether it will be a good or bad president.
Fred Indumuli, I'm not making reference to Fred Matiang'i. Fred Indumuli, there are many ways to kill a rat. The village where I come from, if there's a rat in the house, you can flood the room and then the rat will come out, or you look for that pesticide or whatever it's called. Now, politicians have got very different campaign styles and strategies. There are others who may want to work hard, others may want to work smart. And you know, running for a presidential race is not a 100 meters dash, the one of Usain Bolt. It's 41 or 43 kilometers. So it's very early in the day to start saying that a number of politicians are seated back in the boardroom having a cup of coffee and waiting for somebody to give them flowers. If you're making reference to Kalonzo Musyoka, he's a tier 1 politician who's been around the block. I suspect he understands the political terrain in Kenya very well, and he can deploy his strategy. Now, that is
365 days.
Yeah, that is the election. And then there are other politicians
running against William Ruto, who's been campaigning all through.
There are other politicians who love this thing called razzmatazz. razzmatazz politics. And that is what seems to impress people. Now, if you're making reference to President William Ruto, if Olkalau has given anybody a lesson, you can go there and do the heavy lifting. You work hard, you sweat, blood, sweat, and you're not going to lift the trophy. These two lawyers have indicated that, generally speaking, the Kenyan voters become very literate and they know how to cast their ballot. So you can run from today and you run yourself tired, and Kalonzo Musyoka comes the last minute and upsets everything else. So in my view, at this stage, it's very early in the day to start saying that there's a crop of politicians who are lazy, waiting for nominations or waiting for endorsements. You don't know their strategies. So I think that is very, very critical.
Okay, if I may contribute on that. Huh? Sometimes we just, we are not entirely candid with ourselves. Because for the simple reason that, and we had Muturi's interview, my good friend, JB Muturi, over the weekend. The group that wants a hotel deal, a boardroom deal, wants an early recognition that you are the presidential candidate. They are simply afraid of the people to be able to see, because the elections is going to be in August. The question is, who is the most viable presidential candidate? This question would become most obvious to all of us in around May, April next year. Why is that the case? For the simple reason that in February, under the laws, our election laws, you are going to see now people deciding by February, if you are a big hunch in government, which party will you go to? So that before you've actually been able to see the choices of the heavyweights, they will go to each party. You cannot be able to tell that the preferred party is going to be Matiang'i, is going to be Kalonzo's party, or DCP. You cannot tell in advance. But they want that questions to be settled earlier. And this is now the argument for the people who are afraid of the people. And now they bring the fiction that if you are not together, William Ruto will win. But I keep on asking them a very simple question. Now, can you tell us a route in which if Sifuna is vying, and Rigathi Gachagua, for example, and Kalonzo Musyoka, where Ruto can be able to get anything more than 25%. You give any of these a piece of paper, they cannot come with an arithmetic.
And that is why they are in the public
Let me finish.
They are already doing it, you know.
Let me finish. There is nobody who can take a piece of paper and demonstrate William Ruto is capable of getting 30% if Rigathi vies and Sifuna vies. And those are very viable people with grassroots mobilizations. To tell us that you are a presidential candidate and you cannot step outside your home county and get a crowd of 1,000 people, it's a lie. There's nothing that is going to happen between now and August that will make us
I agree with that. I thought he was saying,
let me give you guidance. We only have 7 minutes, so...
I agree entirely. Now he has come back home. That,
final comments.
Yes, people like Gachagua and Sifuna are out with the people. And there's something about voters. They really like to strip you naked, and then they now like how you are. and yet, if you are afraid that you'll be stripped, people will know your weaknesses, and you want them to vote for you, and again, that is an impossibility. So I urge Kenyans, your viewers, friend in the Muli, I urge people to actually come forward. I'm talking about these ones who want to be presidents, to come forward so that they can be sized up, so that they be weighed up. That is the whole thing about politics. If you don't want to be president, you want something else, then of course you can play backroom politics. And I saw this in 2022 when Uhuru Kenyatta walked with Raila for the longest haul. They go to State House, they go to abroad together, but Raila still lost on those technical issues. So it's important.
Are you saying he appeared reluctant?
No, I'm saying that they did not allow Raila to go out and be charismatic in his usual way. And if you allow people like Sifuna to go out, if you then allow now Fred Matiang'i to also come out, not allow, but if he comes out and does what these other people are doing, then he can be considered as a presidential candidate. By the way, apart from Gachagua and the Sifuna, to be very honest, in terms of where we are today, it is unlikely that anybody else, unless they do what these two are doing, that they can win. If you look at Ruto, he started campaigns in 2013, immediately became deputy president. Then he came all the way, then in 2017, he accelerated it. So there are no magic, or there are no miracles or magic that I will play some backroom politics, then in the last minute, now I will win when it comes to May. We want to vote, in May, we want to decide on people we have seen before.
Exactly. This was
well, you know, there are several tier 1 politicians. Some of them are in the page 1, and it's very clear, and everybody understands that a number of them are in this coalition or a formed coalition, not because in fact they want to run for president. They're looking for cabinet slots. They know, like every other person knows, that they don't stand a chance, not for an elective position. So they're looking for a cabinet slot during the next election. So they want to align themselves with a winning candidate. And in my view, politics does not have ISO standards that this is the way it must be done. There are many ways to kill a rat. So every person who wants to run for president, they've got their own, they've got their own style. Others can work hard, others can be effective, others can be efficient. So it's up to them. And again, who tells you that everybody who wants to run for president actually wants to become president. Others do it for aspirational needs. You remember this gentleman called the Maslow hierarchy of needs. Others want to run because of aspiration. Others want to be referred to Mheshimiwa. Others want to be referred as Excellency when they go to restaurants in the evening. And then also you have some tier 1 politicians like Moses Wetangula and Salem Davadi, who have said they're going to be with President Ruto for purposes of 2032. So there would be a number of people again in this coalition who are not interested in running now, but they're building a brand for 2032, whether it's realistic or not. So this thing, you can't look at it at face value. You must have an helicopter view. You must look at the 4 corners in a room to understand it. And it's not, in my view, it's not advisable to beat up one politician because you've not seen him jumping from one tree to another. No, you don't know their strategy, you don't know what they're looking at, and you don't know how they want to...
The countdown is on. It's only 365 days.
Okay. With the tribal narrative, with the tribal narrative, it is very unfair to take a whole community into just the Ministry of Health. I mean, a lot.
Yes, the scenario is that the Constitution says Kenya is a constitutional democracy. And in a constitutional democracy, the rules for presidential elections are set out. 50+1 and 24 counties support. That is what the rule says. Ultimately, in all democracies, they don't ask whether you are a professor and you are a gardener. You have a single vote. It is for those Kenyans to decide who gets there. The presidency, there are 2 routes to win, round 1 and round 2. Now, for purposes of Kenya, you've had this culture of where the opposition, starting with the media and with a lot of ignorance, they keep saying, and they kept on telling Raila Odinga, that if you have a single candidate, you are going to beat the incumbent. There is a math I will come when we have more time to explain why it wasn't working for Raila Odinga, okay? Because you would go get a close election, then towards the end of the day, because now you divide the country into 2, because it's a 2-horse race, if you are able to steal 200 or 300 votes, you can easily win the presidency. Now, a formula that has failed 3 times. You have the media, and you have a lot of armchair analysts, if you ask me, who wants you to repeat the same formula. Barack Obama used to say that is idiocy, that you cannot use a formula that keeps failing over and over. And this is with the best opposition candidate, Raila Odinga. And you say you want to test it the 4th time. That is where you said you are a mental retard. Okay? So personally, I don't go for a formula that projects me as a mental retard. You go to a formula under which the incentive that people will be bribed becomes less, because it is obvious from day one that you are actually competing to be number 1 or number 2. William Ruto, if you ask me, in a democratic election, you can realize 1 term during round 1. Because as long as Sifuna consolidates the vote on his side, and Rigathi consolidates his vote on that side, and it's not to say that Kalonzo Musyoka cannot be the candidate for Rigathi Gachagua. He can be. All that it takes is a working coalition, and you win the presidency in round 2. It is only that people have a fixed mind, which is what has been preventing them from seeing the possibilities under which electoral rules of Kenya are offering. Finally, is this. When you go to the United States of America, they decide, and they are already doing right now. It is people who go to decide. It's Al-Fayed, it is Mohamed Mamdani. They decide who are going to be the candidates for political office. That's what democracy is all about. Barack Obama would never have been president of America if the question of who is the Democratic candidate was going to be decided in a boardroom. The establishment for the democracy was pro-Clinton, Hillary Clinton. So Obama actually becomes president for the simple reason that the people decide the candidates in the US. So if official oppositions, we are very serious. And this goes out to Sifuna. And you want to repeat a Barack Obama moment. The challenge for Sifuna is going to be easy. Sifuna, unaweza shindwa in round 1 to be number 1 or number 2. If Sifuna's answer is yes, go out for it. You do not have to be, not to be a candidate. Personally, I do not want Sifuna not to be a candidate. The only person I want to be a candidate in these elections, because you have to retire Moi's people. And you know Moi's people, the age group that it is. You need to retire Moi's people. So by hook or crook, Sifuna should be a presidential candidate. It is the only way to move this country forward.
Right. Thank you so much. Wakili Kibe Mungai, Wakili Ishmael Nyaribo, and political risk analyst Dismas Mukua. Exactly 365 days to August 10th, 2027, the date of the next general election, despite the controversy. Tungekuwa na election kesho lakini sioniki. Anyway, thank you so much for your time at TV47. Remember, here we've also started our countdown, 1 year to next elections. So beginning tonight, you're going to have the inaugural special coverage, Kenya Decides 2027. Do make a date with us starting at 6 p.m. We'll be going all the way till 10 p.m. for that, discussing a lot more than what we have discussed today, including preparedness by the IEBC, what the NCIC is doing, and a lot more. See you then. My name is Freddy Ndimuli. Good morning.